Today, we will be discussing the Boulder, Colorado shooting at a local supermarket,
followed by a look at Biden administration's response to the southern border crisis.
And finally, we're committed you to bringing you the news, views, and info to go on this episode of the report, Roundtable Discussion. I'm Jorge Flores.
I'm Amanda Mendoza.
And I'm Tristan Naglino. As you can see, we are continuing to practice social distancing and are going to conduct our episodes via Zoom for the foreseeable future. Although we cannot be together in person, we invite you all to continue to be part of the discussion. Follow us on our Twitter at The Report CSUF or on our Titan TV Instagram at Titan TV CSUF to keep in touch with us and view our new content.
Starting with our first story, last week, Boulder, Colorado tragically lost 10 residents, including a police officer, in a shooting that took place in a King Super grocery store. The suspected gunman has been identified and is currently in the police custody, and is set to appear in court by the end of the week. A possible motive has yet to be disclosed as investigations are still ongoing. Here's CNN reporter Camila Bernal with more on the story.
10 victims ranging in ages 20 to 65. Their lives cut short Monday when a man opened fire in a Boulder, Colorado supermarket.
It's a simple run for milk and eggs, getting ready to shop, going in a regular way we all live our lives, something that we can all identify with, led to a complete tragedy here today.
One of those victims, police officer Eric Talley, who was the first officer to respond to the incident.
We can never thank Officer Talley or his family enough for their sacrifice, but we will not forget it.
Police say the suspect is a 21-year-old man from Arvada. He exchanged gunfire with officers and was shot.
He has been charged with 10 counts of murder in the first degree.
We will hold the evildoer responsible to the full extent of the law for his actions.
But authorities have not yet released a motive for the shooting. Now, we know that police did search the suspect's home. They did find more weapons there. He is now facing 10 counts of first-degree murder. Authorities say this investigation will likely take some time, maybe even up to a year for a resolution. They're asking this community for patience, but they say they will do everything they can to bring justice. Reporting in Boulder, Colorado, I'm Camila Bernal. Back to you.
All right, guys, let's start with this story because this is very interesting to me. Once again, we have more shootings. Now, shooting after shooting. It's been just 7 days and we have 2 shootings already up to this moment. Now, I have 2 points to make in this story. The first one is the gun reform. We need a gun reform today. And it's incredible to me that anyone can buy a gun without any kind of specific permission, just to buy it, and that's it, having a license, and you can use an AR-15 outside and just point to whatever you want. I think we really need a gun reform because now in the Biden's administration, that's something that he's trying to push from the Congress and then to Congress to pass in our legislative system. The other point that I want to make out is that what happens when it comes about just shooting after shooting? Why are we having these kind of problems? I think that it goes more than just hate. It goes because we have mental illness in our society. And sadly, this is affecting every single year. We have been looked to the schools and the shootings that they have been happening in public spaces. What's next? What do you think, Tristan, about this situation?
Or to think that this is the 7th mass shooting in 7 days is absolutely insane. Now, it's interesting to note that 10 days before the shooting, Boulder's measure to enforce a 2-year ban on assault weapons and large magazines had exactly been blocked by the government. According to the Denver Post, under state law, local governments cannot prohibit the possession or sale of firearms, which means that they can't exactly make their own laws. It really is up to the states, and that's a law that's applicable to 40 states across the country. Now, even if there was a current ban on assault rifles in Boulder, would the suspect have acknowledged that? To be honest, we're not exactly sure because mental illness is definitely an issue. The family of the suspect reports that the suspect definitely had a history of perceived mental illness, although it wasn't officially diagnosed. Now, this comes into the question of background checks. The government needs to add some sort of provision to ask perhaps family members or close friends before the suspect buys a gun if they are to be trusted. So that being said, Amanda, what are your thoughts on the whole situation?
Well, Tristan, what I found interesting is that according to NPR, mass shootings can actually be contagious. And in 2014 and 2015, there was a study conducted by researchers at Arizona State University regarding this topic. The lead researcher named Sherry Towers said, quote, what we found was that for mass killings, so these are high profile mass killings where there's at least 4 people killed, there was significant evidence of contagion, end quote. So in conclusion, yes, some shootings can influence other shootings. So knowing this information, why do we continue to sell military style guns? And these aren't handheld guns. These weapons make it so much easier to kill plenty of people. So we at least need to ban these type of weapons like the AR-15 pistol used in the shooting, so that way more people don't get hurt. So I believe we need stronger gun control in this country to prevent issues like this. And so moving on to federal news, President Joe Biden is being called out for his administration's lack of transparency over the U.S. border crisis after denying all media access to enter the juvenile migrant detention facilities. This comes to light after a group of senators visited the U.S.-Mexico border last Friday and were not allowed to have reporters or White House press to take information back to their newsroom. The crisis is growing as surges of migration to the U.S. continues, according to the 14,000 migrant children that are currently held in federal custody. Journalists such as NBC's Jacob Soboroff pointed out that the Trump administration allowed full access to the press of coverage on the border. The Biden administration has responded, explaining that the facilities holding the children are yet to be permitted to access because of safety concerns regarding COVID-19 and remain committed to transparency. U.S. Press Secretary Jen Psaki stated that there is no crisis on the border, pushing the administration's challenges on the border narrative. President Joe Biden has given Vice President her first major task to lead the response for border challenges, hoping to give updates soon. So everyone, this is big news. This is an interesting situation. And according to CNN, although it was expected that the amount of immigrants would increase when Biden was in office, these numbers are unprecedented. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas said that the number of migrants coming in will probably reach a 2-decade peak. Allegedly, the Biden team warned that this would happen several times. And CNN also states that, quote, Biden officials argue that the Trump team inhibited their ability to get a true grasp of the situation by not fully cooperating during the transition in the months after the election, end quote. So I have mixed feelings on this. And if the Biden administration is telling the truth and they want kids to be safe from COVID, then I completely understand. However, if they're trying to hide information about what conditions are like for migrant children, then that's absolutely horrible. And I think the government should not be keeping this type of information away from the American public. This is crucial that Americans know what's going on at the border and understand this crisis to its full extent. What are your thoughts, Jorge?
Amanda, there are a lot of things to talk about in this topic. I'll point out the Biden administration. First of all, I understand that the Biden administration is trying to hide information or trying to hide the situation because they know it's not their problem. It came from the Trump administration. I understand. But from a public perspective, this is completely wrong. This is a humanitarian crisis, and they don't want to call it like that because that label seems too much, and it's going to give bad press. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that if he knows that it's not his problem, he should be open to the press and open to the public and be, okay, this is the situation, guys. Yes, we have a humanitarian crisis, but we're trying to work on it. That's why until this moment, he pointed out Kamala Harris to take charge of this situation because he knows it's really important. Now, a lot of and millions of Latinos, they voted for him and they are not seeing any kind of change or improvement for their community. So this is a big impact. Now, I just want to talk also about the Republican effect. Of course, Republicans, they are against Biden and against hiding information because that's what they gotta do. They just gotta push and push more to the administration for them to make a quick change or at least an improvement. So I think this was not a clever move from Biden administration. He should be transparent since the first day, but he didn't do it. So those are my thoughts. What do you think, Tristan?
I agree with you, Jorge. I feel like transparency here is the key issue that's at hand. And like you said, this is genuinely a humanitarian issue. Like the report said, 14,000 migrant children are currently detained, and that number is only going to increase. I'm going to talk about the conditions of why these migrants are even coming to the US in the first place. It's due to the drug violence, the gang recruitment, and the poverty that we've seen in Central America, of these third world countries in El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala. So when you look at these incidents of the migrants going into these detention facilities, these conditions that we already know inflict traumatic experiences upon these migrants. Kids huddling into small enclosures, the lack of hygiene, the essentials, and even kids, they're sexually harassed and raped by the staff that's supposed to take care of them, which is ICE. And I feel like ICE right here is the problem. We've known in the past, according to Mia Stanley of POGO, in 2017, these migrants would have to perform tasks which they would only receive less than $1 of wages. They would have to cook and clean under the threat of solitary confinement by ICE, and that's only going to exacerbate the problem. So with the Biden administration not being transparent in this whole situation, it's certainly only going to make things worse in relations with Central American countries and, of course, the American people. Moving on to CSUF news, Provost Carolyn Thomas recently announced that CSUF will be holding in-person commencement ceremonies in June of this year. The ceremonies will include the classes of 2020 and 2021 graduates only, while family members will be able to watch the live stream from home. If students choose not to participate, they will still be provided with a virtual graduation ceremony on a different day. More information on dates and times will be released in April. Students can also attend virtual grad fests from April 12th to the 15th to get more information. Either way, it's all becoming real. Congrats, the class of 2021. So we here at The Report recently conducted a Twitter poll about the whole situation on CSUF's graduation commencement, and we wanted to hear the community's thoughts. So let's go take a look at the results. According to the poll, 50% wish that we could have guests in the ceremonies. 31% say that they're glad to have both a virtual and in-person ceremony, while 90% say that they prefer virtual ceremonies exclusively. Now, as a graduating senior myself, I feel like this is the news that I so wanted to hear, and I'm sure that many other graduates wanted to hear as well. Walking on stage during a graduation is a prestigious moment. This is a milestone that I'm sure every student dreams to have, especially in college. This is a representation of a better future for them. So, but I understand that safety does come first. So by having no guests and only limiting it to the in-person graduates, it's going to make things safe for everyone, and it's just going to be better in the long run. However, as a graduating senior myself, you can't replicate the feeling of looking at the crowd and seeing your family and your loved ones smiling and be proud of you. And without those loved ones in the stands, it's just going to make the whole experience different. But I could say one thing, a virtual ceremony, what's good about it is that your relatives from far away can now watch you graduate live. So if there's a positive outlook on that, there's that aspect.
Well, Tristan, I like to say that I agree with you. And what I also think is interesting is how they want to combine the class of 2020 and the class of 2021. If that were me in that spot, I would feel a little bit cheated, because the whole point of graduating is that you want to feel special and that you want to graduate with your year. And so having those 2 years together might feel a little awkward, but some seniors might feel fine with it. But in regards to the reasoning behind all of this, I understand that COVID is still a prominent issue. And so I see why they'd want to have options for online or in person, and to ensure that families could watch from behind a screen. But like you said, Tristan, if that were me, I would want my family to be there. I'd want my friends to be there. And it doesn't feel like it's the graduation experience without the aspect of having the people you love and care about coming to see you graduate from college. What are your thoughts, Jorge?
Totally, Amanda. Now, if I were going to graduate this year, I think it will be very important for me to have my friends and family. However, some people might argue that why don't we have a normal ceremony in the future? The thing is that it's not the moment anymore. Like, we already graduated this year. So having a normal ceremony in the future, we don't know if it's going to be like in 6 months, or maybe we're going to overlap with a 2022 ceremony. I mean, I think it's going to be a complete mess. And the moment it just passed. That's my opinion. But also with my senior friends, they will like to at least have this prestige to pass and to be in your moment. Even though you don't have your family or friends, at least we can have a live transmission. I think like we just gotta be grateful for the opportunity that at least we're gonna have this, because some other schools, they're still thinking about just having everything virtual. So I think that was a good CSUF move for our students and our happiness that those who are graduating, they're going to have a kind of normal ceremony at the end, at least getting their own moment. Moving on to more news, it's the middle of the spring semester for some university campuses in the country, which means Spring Break 2021 is in full effect. Crowds in Miami, Florida have already begun gathering for the traditional spring break, though the daily COVID-19 cases are still in thousands. As a result, Miami Beach officials have imposed a citywide curfew to try to combat the virus. Many other cities and state governments throughout the country are also concerned with the traditional holiday month, as high traveling numbers pose a high risk of new COVID-19 wave. Dr. Anthony Fauci recently expressed his concern for a new wave shortly after Texas Governor Greg Abbott announced his plan to remove the mask mandates and gave businesses the green light to operate at 100% capacity. President Biden has urged the country to continue following the mask mandates, safety protocols, and receive the vaccine as soon as possible in order for families and friends from different households to gather once again.
Moving on to some local news. Over the weekend, Assemblywoman Sharon Quirk Silva led a press conference at the Fullerton City Hall. She was joined by other elected officials, as well as Asian and Pacific Islander advocates who were ready to see racially motivated hate crimes come to an end. As officials took turns addressing the violence, California State Senator Dave Min spoke about the correlation of the Asian hate crimes to the lack of support from elected officials after President Trump's claims that Chinese Americans were to blame for the coronavirus. After many other elected officials shared their opinions on the horrible actions in this country, the crowd then rejoiced in celebration for the unanimous passing of a bill that condemns anti-Asian hate crimes.
Happy Women's History Month, Titans. All month long, we are highlighting women who have and continue to make a great impact in our society. This week, we'll be discussing the Queen Bee herself, Miss Beyonce Knowles Carter. On March 14th, Beyonce broke the record of the most Grammys won by a female artist, a record that was previously held by country bluegrass singer Alison Krauss and the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin. Beyonce managed to snag the title with her win for Best R&B Performance for Black Parade and her collaboration with Megan Thee Stallion, Savage. Beyonce got her start singing in competitions as a child, then joined an up-and-coming group, Destiny's Child, before going solo in 2003 with her album, Dangerously in Love. She's known for her singing, acting, dancing, and humanitarian efforts during Hurricane Harvey and her $6 million donation to mental health services to essential workers during the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you for the inspiring women who we celebrate not only this month, but every day. And to think that Beyonce has over 79 nominations, and this is her 28th Grammy Award, just goes to show that she is the icon, and she goes to prove on that female artists are a testament to their success. And we've seen that with other artists like Megan Thee Stallion, her, and Dua Lipa. So it goes to the question, who runs the world? Girls. And with that, that's all the time we have today for On the Report Roundtable Discussion. Have a safe week, everyone, and stay tuned for more news, views, and info. I'm Tristan Naglunog.
I'm Jorge Flores.
And I'm Amanda Mendoza. As always, stay fresh, Fullerton.